If you're a trucker or you work with one, you'll want to hear this story. Today, I'm going to be breaking down a tax return of a trucker that had, let's just say, some creative expenses. I'm talking about gym memberships, medical expenses, and one expense that literally just said cash expense. So here's what happened. I had a new client come to me this year, an independent truck driver or a sole proprietor. They wanted a second opinion on their tax situation. They were working with a local tax preparer that they've been working with for years. Not a CPA, not a tax professional, just somebody that puts the numbers in the boxes and hits file. When I opened up their tax return, everything seemed fine. Everything was in the correct place, exactly like it should be. When I got to the Schedule C and I looked at the other expenses category, that's when I was in shock. Now let me tell you what I found, because it was just next level. Charitable contributions, gym membership, medical expenses, something labeled as cash expense. Now the problem with that is, although some of those things are deductible, they're not deductible on a Schedule C. Charitable contributions, yes, they are deductible, but not on a Schedule C. They have to go on a Schedule A, and only if you're not taking the standard deduction that year and you're itemizing your deductions. Gym membership, that is not a business expense unless you're some kind of fitness trainer, a fitness coach. Definitely not a truck driver. Medical expenses, once again, are a personal expense that belong on Schedule A, which is once again used only if you itemize your deductions, which most people do not. And then my favorite is the cash expense. They might as well just labeled it tax fraud expense and called it a day right there. It was just a round number, no explanation, no receipts, nothing. I laughed and then I sighed, because this client had no idea that these expenses were there in the first place. They trusted their tax preparer, but this return, it was a mess. I called up the client because I had to break the bad news to them. I had to walk them through each of these expenses that was a massive red flag for the IRS. Their reaction was total shock, because they had no idea that most of these expenses were not deductible on a Schedule C. Their tax preparer did not inform them. And this is why somebody that just does taxes is not the same as an accountant that walks with you every single month and knows your industry and knows your risk. Just because the tax preparer filed the return doesn't mean it was correctly filed. And here's the real danger. When the IRS audits this return, they're not calling the tax preparer. They're going straight after the taxpayer. And the worst part about this is this kind of return hurts the legitimacy of real life truckers that actually have credible expenses like fuel, maintenance, lodging, and insurance. But when you bury those real expenses under a whole bunch of crap, you lose that credibility in the eyes of the IRS. The tax code is strict, but it's also clear. Business expenses have to be ordinary and necessary to your trade or business. Gym membership and vague cash expenses, that's not going to fly. So here's how we fixed it. First, we had to file a 1040X, which is an amended tax return. We removed the non-deductible items they had as expenses and recalculated their correct taxable income. Then we built a better system in place. First, we set up monthly bookkeeping, real documentation. That way the client has a plan instead of scrambling at tax time at the end of the year. If you're a truck driver or an independent contractor of any kind, here's what you need to remember. Do not trust your deductions to somebody that's just trying to rush to get you out of the door and get your tax return filed. Know what you can and cannot write off. And another very important thing is to maintain good records, keep receipts, QuickBooks files. Remember, if you can't prove it, you can't deduct it. Question anything vague on your tax return when you go to review it. Things like cash expense, not only is that vague, that's also not deductible. Taxes do not have to be scary, but they have to be accurate. If you want a second set of eyes on your tax return, or you're ready to make the switch from a tax preparer to a real tax advisor, let's talk. Like this video if you learned something. Subscribe if you want more real life tax talk and small business strategy. Share this with a trucker that deserves something better than just cash expense on their Schedule C. And remember, drive safe and stay tax smart.